We often think of authors living these exciting lives through the characters they create. But what if that creation was more like a desperate escape from a really brutal reality? Well, today, we're going to dive into the intertwined lives of Miguel de Cervantes, a man who knew the absolute depths of human suffering, and his creation, Don Quixote, the immortal madman he dreamed into existence. Okay, let's just jump right in. On one side, you have the real man, a soldier wounded in battle, a captive sold into slavery, a tax collector just struggling to get by. And on the other side, his character, a noble knight-errant, a visionary on a grand quest, a legendary lover. And that's the huge paradox we're going to unpack here, this incredible clash between a harsh reality and a beautiful, beautiful madness. Look, to really get Don Quixote, you have to understand the man who made him. So let's trace these two parallel lives, side by side, the creator and his creation. And this really gets to the heart of our whole explainer. How on earth does someone who went through so much pain and suffering manage to create a work of universal comedy and, honestly, enduring hope? Let's find out. First things first, we have to look at the grim reality of the author. Before he was this literary giant, Miguel de Cervantes was a guy who really knew the worst the world had to offer. I mean, his life wasn't just tough, it was a relentless series of just brutal events. He was a war hero, got permanently maimed in a legendary sea battle, then, bam, he's captured by pirates and sold in the slave markets of Algiers. And even after he was finally ransomed, he just faced constant poverty, bouncing between jobs, including one as a tax collector that actually landed him in prison. And let's just pause on this number for a second. 5. 5 grueling years. That's how long Cervantes spent as a slave in Algiers, trying to escape over and over again. This wasn't some short-term problem. This was a foundational, soul-crushing part of his life. But here's what's so incredible. Even in the absolute depths of despair, Cervantes' true character just shone through. This quote, it's from a fellow prisoner testifying for him, and it shows he wasn't just surviving his captivity. He was a leader, a source of comfort, a father and mother to the others suffering with him. He was a real-life hero long before he ever created his famous knight. So, from the ashes of all that very real, very unromantic danger, a completely different kind of hero was born. One who didn't come from a battlefield, but from the ink of a quill pen. So how does our famous knight get his start? Well, just listen to his housekeeper wailing about it. It all begins with books. An ordinary country gentleman reads so many stories of knights and chivalry that they completely scramble his brain, blurring that line between fiction and his own reality. And, this isn't just a sudden snap into madness. No, it's a deliberate, step-by-step construction of a whole new reality. This gentleman, Alonso Quijano, he literally builds his new identity piece by piece. He decides he's going to be a knight, gives his old, broken-down horse a heroic name, and, maybe most importantly, he invents a peasant girl from a nearby town to be his noble princess, Dulcinea, a woman he's never even spoken to. And this is the role he chooses for himself. Not a king, not a general, but a wandering knight. His whole purpose is to chase an ideal, to be, as he puts it, the undoer of wrongs and injustices in a world that he thinks has forgotten all about honor. It's his way of escaping the mundane and embracing something magnificent. Okay, so this is where the two stories really start to collide. You can see Cervantes' harsh reality constantly being mirrored and, well, totally transformed in Quixote's wild fantasies. And this just lays it out so perfectly. Cervantes fought real soldiers and pirates. Don Quixote, well, he famously fights windmills that he thinks are giants. Cervantes was thrown into actual disgusting prisons. Quixote, when he gets captured, believes he's the victim of some magical enchantment. Cervantes knew the real, gnawing pain of poverty. Quixote thinks it's a knight's glory. This pretty much sums up Quixote's whole worldview in a nutshell. He tells his squire that going hungry is actually a point of pride, that it's all part of the glorious, romantic life of a knight. He's choosing to see hardship as an honor. But then, Cervantes immediately yanks us back down to earth with the hilarious voice of realism, his loyal, ever-practical squire, Sancho Panza. While Quixote is going on and on about the glory of starvation, Sancho's just rummaging in his bags for some actual food. He's the anchor holding this beautiful fantasy to the messy, hungry ground. And this is the crucial point. This is his magic trick. Cervantes isn't just escaping his past. He is confronting it. He's transforming it. He takes all the pain, the humiliation, the struggle of his own life, and he filters it through Quixote's madness, creating something that is both ridiculously funny and profoundly moving. It's a survival tactic that he turned into timeless art. The novel was an instant hit, but its story didn't just end when the first part was published. Oh no, the book itself had its own dramatic adventure. So part 1 comes out in 1605, and it's a runaway bestseller, spreading like wildfire across Europe. But then, in this totally bizarre twist, some anonymous author publishes a fake part 2 in 1614. They basically stole Cervantes' characters and ran off with his story. This act of literary theft basically forced the aging Cervantes to race to write his own true sequel. And get this, in his version, he actually has his characters find out about the fake book and call it out. Then, to make sure nobody could ever steal them again, he gives Don Quixote a definitive ending, cementing his own version as the final word forever. And over time, the way people read the book changed, like dramatically. What was first seen as just a simple, funny book became something so much deeper. Readers started to feel ashamed of laughing and began seeing it as a tragic story, a sharp satire, and even a profound philosophical question about what's real and what's not. So why? Why, after more than 400 years, are we still talking about this mad knight and his long-suffering author? Well, because this is his mission. In his own words, Don Quixote believes he was born into a cynical Iron Age, specifically to bring back the Age of Gold. He's fighting to force a beautiful, noble dream onto a harsh, unforgiving world. And that is why it lasts. His quest is our quest. It's the battle we all fight, right? To find meaning, to believe in something better, and to see the world not just for what it is, but for what it could be. Which leaves us with one final, kind of unsettling thought. Cervantes was the same prisoner, trapped by the brutal realities of his life. And so he created Don Quixote, the free madman, who escaped that same reality just by reinventing it. The question the book leaves us with is, which one is truly free?